we going to sit down when we do our slides or not?
It's too hard to get up and back and forth.
We're getting ready to go, so please find a seat and we'll start.
Oh, that's a wasp. That's a military wasp. Navy gave them to us.
That's just intel or something?
Yeah. Reach across here, John. I'm going to reach across here for a second.
And so that we have floor models.
Good. The knob inside you flip it.
Good to meet you.
Okay. How many you want? Yes, you want a couple for parts.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. We want to welcome you to the first public meeting with an FAA UAS test site. We welcome you here. So to begin with, we do have to give you some safety information. In the unlikely case of an emergency, we'll use our aviation speak, what you would do is follow the exit signs and go out to the left. There will be floor monitors that will assist you to leave the floor, and if there are any alarms, we will obey the alarms and leave the facility immediately. In addition to that, the restrooms are out to your left and left again, and then they'll be on your right. So hopefully we will have an uneventful meeting here and no alarms and nothing coming up, but just in case we do. We also ask you that you please silence or turn off your cell phones as not to interrupt the meeting. We will have two ways for you to get questions to us. We are live streaming this event, and so there are people online. So there's a Twitter feed under Ask MAAP FAA with MAAP and FAA capitalized, and you can tweet your questions. And we have a monitor that will bring the questions to us. And for those of you in the room, we will have an open microphone that you would stand at and ask questions from. So we're very excited to be here. So we'll start with the opening remarks. We're very excited to be an FAA allocated test site, and you're going to learn more about us for those that don't know anything today. About what we're doing and where we are, and really we want this to be a meeting to answer your questions. So I am going to actually turn it over right now to Carmen Gallo. Carmen is the regional administrator in the Eastern region, is based out of New York. His territory is certainly our test site area, and he's here to welcome us from the FAA. Carmen.
Thank you. Thank you, and to the Mid-Atlantic Aviation Partnership and Virginia Tech for inviting me to be part of today's UAS test site meeting. It's a pleasure to join you this afternoon. It's an exciting time in the aviation world. Unmanned systems are moving so quickly these years. For a number of years, the use of the technology expands. What has once become a primary military use has become applicable for everything from infrastructure, inspection, and accident investigation, the filming of movies, photography, and real estate. The UAS industry is growing quickly. People and businesses want to be able to use this relatively inexpensive technology to aid in the work they do every day. This is especially true of job categories as what we call the 3Ds, dangerous, dirty, or dull. But as with any new technology, there are things that we don't know. Research is what needs to be done. Regulations that need to be put in place. There are a lot of questions to be answered before we can fully integrate UAS into the national airspace system. The operations being conducted at the UAS test sites are just one of the first steps toward learning what we need for UAS integration. In 2012, Congress directed the FAA to establish 6 UAS test sites to conduct research, aiding in the FAA developing regulatory standards and operational procedures for UAS. On December 30th, 2013, the FAA announced the 6 test sites, including Virginia Tech-led Mid-Atlantic Aviation Partnership, or MAAP. Each one of these test sites was chosen based on a diversity in geography, climate, ground infrastructure, research needs, and experience. The Mid-Atlantic Aviation Partnership has enjoyed a number of successes since being granted the initial certificate of waiver or authorization, also known as a COA, just over a year ago. Since the test site is the first flight on August 13, 2014, more than 300 flights have been conducted using 10 different unmanned aircraft systems authorized under 20 active COAs. In May, the opportunities for the test sites expanded even further. The FAA has moved the issue of each 6 test sites in a blanket authorization for public aircraft operations. This authorization allows the test site to conduct operations anywhere in the U.S. with the exception of restricted airspace and areas close to the airports and heliports. Under this, quote, blanket operation COA, the test sites can operate small UASs weighing less than 55 pounds up to 200 feet above the ground level. Operators must still fly during daylight hours within the line of sight of a pilot, but the pilot requirements are now easier to satisfy. Previously, a pilot certificate and third-class medical certificate were required. Under the blanket COA, test site UAS operators now only need a recreational or sport pilot certificate and a valid driver's license to satisfy the medical requirement. The test sites have the ability to operate multiple aircraft under one COA versus having to apply for separate COAs for each type of UAS. As a result, the team you'll hear from today can expand on the operations beyond operations from their home bases in Virginia, Maryland, and New Jersey. They'll also now be able to begin more operations more quickly without having to wait for operation or aircraft-specific authorizations. On July 17th, the Virginia Tech-led test site participated in one of their most exciting operations to date. Working with NASA and UAS manufacturer Flirty, Let's Fly Wisely event, as part of the program, the test site demonstrated how the UAS can operate and improve healthcare access and creating an economic opportunity, delivering medical supplies to a free health clinic in Wise, Virginia. The event garnered national attention from the media, resulting in stories published in the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, Airspace Magazine, and Inside Unmanned Aircraft System and the Washington Post. Since being announced in December 2013, the UAS test site program has provided a wealth of operational data to the FAA. Research flights conducted on the test sites have contributed to the process of integrating UAS into the national airspace system, and will continue to play an important role as we continue to introduce these systems into our skies. Thank you again to Rose and the rest of the Mid-Atlantic Aviation Partnership team for inviting me to be part of today's test site public meeting. I appreciate you taking the time to join us and look forward to answering your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmine. So we're very excited that we are able to work with the FAA to bring research to further the safety case and the goals of integration of UAS. So I'm going to introduce the remainder of our panel. We have Bill Crozier sitting next to Carmine. Bill Crozier is the FAA UAS Integration Office Acting Manager. Next to him is John Green, the Virginia Associate Director for the Mid-Atlantic Aviation Partnership. Next to him is Matt Scassero, the Maryland Associate Director for the Mid-Atlantic Aviation Partnership. And next to Matt is Joe Shears, the New Jersey Associate Director from the Mid-Atlantic Aviation Partnership. So again, we want you to hold your questions and answers. You can either tweet or come up to the microphone if you're in the room. So what we want, the purpose of today's meeting is to discuss MAAP innovations and opportunity, talk about the privacy policy, and foremost is to answer questions that you have and to let you know what's going on with UAS. So this really is your meeting. We're giving an overview so that you understand where we are and what we're doing as a baseline, and then we want interactive questions from there. So we can share information in the future using our MAAP website. If you look up Mid-Atlantic Aviation Partnership on Google, you'll be directed to the website. We also have Twitter feeds. We also have LinkedIn and also Facebook that you can link in for what we're doing at the test site. So for some of you, many people ask me about unmanned aircraft being a new idea. So I wanted to give you a little bit of history on unmanned aircraft. Unmanned aircraft have actually been around since World War I. And in 1849, the Austrians invaded by balloon Venice. So unmanned aircraft has actually been around a very long time. In World War I, the U.S. Army developed bombs in 1916, and the Royal Air Force stated that they were doing development of unmanned aircraft. So that's a very long time ago. They're not brand new. They are brand new to many because they hadn't heard and they had military use. So target drones have been in development since the 1940s and through today on aircraft, but aircraft reuse for unmanned systems did not begin until the 1960s. Modern UAS, the early military programs of record started as early as 1980 with the Pioneer in the Navy, the Pioneer system. They were typically purchased by the intelligence branch of the military, and they really didn't care whether the aircraft was the truck was a truck, an aircraft, or something else that moved. They just wanted the data off the sensors. So their requirements were not aviation geared, and that's why they were developed without an aviation viewpoint. They wanted them to be cost effective, expeditionary, and very fast development. So that's where really the genesis of unmanned aircraft came, was to put a capability of sensor and data and intel into the hands of the military quickly, efficiently, and cost effectively. Breaking into the commercial market, waivers started in 2014, and of course research with the FAA test sites. The waivers were 333s and, of course, the certificates of authorization for public entities. And the FAA test sites were allocated in December of 2013. So this picture here, some of you may recognize her and some of you may not. This person happens to be Norma Jean Dougherty, who turned out to be Marilyn Monroe. She actually worked as a technician in a radio plane munitions plant in 1944. So unmanned aircraft had been around a long time. That was before her fame. That was, I guess, one of her day jobs before she took off from there. But as you can see, in 1945, they recognized that she had some photographic capabilities and was already in magazines. So in 2012, the FAA, through a reauthorization bill from Congress, designated the establishments of the 6 test sites, the UAS test sites. The program requirement said that the administrator shall designate aircraft for integrated manned and unmanned flight operations at test ranges. They develop certification standards and air traffic requirements for unmanned flight operations at test ranges, coordinate with and leverage the resources of NASA and DoD, address both civil and public aircraft, UAS, ensure the program is coordinated with next-gen, provide for verification of the safety of UAS and related navigation procedures. So that's what Congress wanted this test site set up for. So as I mentioned, on December 30th of 2013, the FAA designated the 6 test sites to support the safe and efficient integration of UAS into the national airspace. Part of that requirement was that they were geographically diverse. So as you can see on the map, there are 6 test sites allocated all over the country. Griffiths International Airport in New York, Virginia Tech MAAP, which is Maryland, New Jersey, and Virginia, Texas A&M in Corpus Christi, North Dakota, Department of Commerce, State of Nevada, and then the University of Alaska in Fairbanks. 25 applicants applied from 24 states, and Virginia won as the state with Maryland, Virginia, and New Jersey. So what is our mission? Our mission is the safe and efficient integration of unmanned aircraft systems into our national airspace system. So what we want is to see safety first. So despite the challenges, we see a tremendous utility on unmanned aircraft systems in civil applications. We're going to talk a little bit more about those applications here in a little while. We want the U.S. to be in the forefront of the UAS industry and for UAS companies and citizens to benefit. We know there's a lot of competition out there internationally, and our team has from day one focused on the question of how can we do this safely. We know that it is a technical and social challenge, but we have a clear vision on how we can move forward while ensuring the safety of the public and respecting the privacy of individuals. We also want to be best value. We want to be able to provide industry, universities, and government best value to integrate these safely and to be able to inform the safety case to move forward with civil operations. We believe that this should be done in a collaborative manner, working together with not only industry, but with other universities and also with government, so that we're not duplicating the effort. This job is big enough that we don't want to duplicate the effort. We want to work together to move the ball together. And then we also want to be responsive. We want to be able to respond to the needs of industry, of the universities, and of government to get these things in the air. We know that this train is moving quickly. We want to bring customers to Virginia, Maryland, and New Jersey. We want to bring companies and jobs. The governor's offices are the ones that actually put the seed money up for the test sites, and that's what they want in their districts. We want public benefit, and we also want to provide the data and research to the FAA to inform the safety case. But the main goal for all of us is the safe, routine UAS access into the NAS as we go along. We want it to be incremental, and we want it to be final when it gets there. So that is our goal. So MAAP actually now has about 14 flight locations through the Mid-Atlantic area. Those flight locations range from Class D airports at Blackstone to other airports in St. Mary's County, Maryland, Cape May, New Jersey. And we also have remote locations. We also have Lonesome Pines down. What we've decided to do is have an organic approach wants to happen and not bring research to where we are. So we have taken an organic approach to figure that out. And right now we have 14 locations, as mentioned, including a couple here in the Northern Virginia area. So some of the early applications of UAS, and we believe, as most people have seen, that the small UAS is going to have the commercial market first. That would be agriculture, pipeline and power, utility types of work, and as Carmine mentioned, the dull, dangerous, and dirty jobs where people are getting injured and hurt. We also see first responders in emergencies, and we have participated in a number of search and rescue activities. We see that the news is another area that we can benefit. They also have fatalities with manned aviation, as does all of these industries. So for news gathering and for traffic management and applications that benefit the public through the information provided. Also weather and hurricanes and national emergencies and local emergencies. Roofing. I happen to live in an old Victorian house that has a very steep roof, and every time I have to have someone on my metal roof, I'm thinking they're up there inspecting that roof off of a ladder 3 stories up, and I'm thinking, okay, where is the UAS to go up there and do that for him so that he doesn't have to fall off? We haven't figured out quite how to have him repair it yet, but at least that saves one step. And then again, emergency rescue, things for natural disasters and fire. So I'm going to turn it over now to our associate directors, Virginia being first, to talk about a little bit about what they're doing. John Green.
So again, I'm John Green, and the first thing I want to do is introduce Mark Blanks in the back of the room. Mark has recently come on and is as of the end of this meeting, will be the Associate Director for Virginia and the Director of the Virginia Tech UAS Test Site. And I'm thrilled to have him here, and our whole team is really excited to put him to work. So my last job is going to be answer any questions you may have. So I'm hoping to drag this out as long as possible. So as many questions as you get, hard ones are good. In any case, we've had a really exciting year and a half as a test site, and an exciting year leading up to that, trying to put a test site together. I'll just talk about a couple of the highlights for us. Some of the real attention-grabbing things that have occurred for us. But when I do this, I want you to understand that there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that we're not going to talk about. And that's because some of it's proprietary. We've got customers out there that want to fly, but the fact that they're flying and what they're flying and where they're flying is something that they are not ready to share. And you're going to see that there have been over 300 flights to this point in the Mid-Atlantic Aviation Partnership. So when we talk about what's happening today, recognize that you're just getting, first of all, our first flight event, which occurred a little over a year ago down in Blacksburg, Virginia, on the SMART Road at the Virginia Tech Transportation Institute. This is a facility that has a number of different pavement types and the ability to control the environment, including providing snow and fog and rain on the facility. So it's a really top-notch facility for transportation and research. And what we did for our first research flight down there was to conduct a flight to respond to a accident scene in which we had a toxic spill. And we had a great event there. We learned a lot about a number of different things. One of them was that you can't control the governor's schedule, and he's probably going to be late. So we didn't start on time, but we had a great event and learned a lot, and we've been very busy ever since. I'd also like to talk a little bit about our news media coalition, and we have Chuck Tobin and Joel Robertson from Holland Knight, who put together a team of news media outlets that were interested in the application of UAS or drone technology for news gathering. And they were very intent on doing it the right way. And I was really gratified the first time we did a survey with them about what their priorities were. I think 80% of them responded that their number one priority was safety. So that told me we were working with the right group of people. So what we've done is we've developed a research curriculum. So what we're really trying to do is figure out how you take a reporter or a cameraman and give them the ability to safely operate a UAS for news gathering in a series of 5 different scripted type of scenarios. So we came up with 5 scenarios that provide a good sampling of the type of situations that you would want to be able to fly in. And we're going through a 2-phase education program. The first one was a 3-day event where most of it was classroom, and then there was a day of flight operations. And then the next session that we're going to do is actually we're starting this month is more of the scripted flight scenarios. So we've been really gratified about the way this has turned out. We've learned an awful lot, and one of the things that we spent a lot of time thinking about is as you come through this process of certification, there's a place where you become safe to operate. That does not necessarily mean that you're a skilled operator. That means you know enough about your own limitations to be able to keep yourself out of situations where you're not going to end up with a bad outcome. And so it's very similar to when you turn your keys over to your 16-year-old daughter, which I've done 4 times, 4 daughters. It's a little terrifying, right? And you think they're safe, but you know they're not a good driver yet. And so that's so what we've been trying to do is really figure out when is the point where we're confident in saying, here are the keys, go fly this thing, and you've been told how to do it safely. So that's been a great learning experience for all of us, including the news media. The last one Mr. Gallo mentioned just a minute ago is the Let's Fly Wisely event that occurred last month in a little town of Wise, Virginia. It was a very gratifying event. So what we had is we had a team of really technologists, NASA, a couple of small companies, Flirty and C-SPAN, SEE, S-P-A-N, not C-SPAN. And then we had the County of Wise that was very interested in growing the industry in their region. And then we had 2 groups of medical providers, 3 groups of medical providers. The Remote Area Medical Organization, the Health Wagon, which is a local organization, and then the RX Partnership, which is responsible for getting the medicines to these folks. And these folks have been conducting a health fair down in southwestern Virginia and Wise that attracts people from across 4 states, from Virginia, West Virginia, Tennessee, and Kentucky, all through the Appalachian region, to come down for free medical care. So they have between 3,000 and 5,000 people showing up over the course of a weekend for medical care. So my first question is, you want to do what, where? I started talking to these people, and I realized that the people that were most excited about the operation were not the technologists. It wasn't NASA, and it wasn't the MAAP. It was the people that were dealing with real-world problems and the ability to have this new technology to solve some of those problems. So in Southwest Virginia last year, we had National Guardsmen chucking up through the snow on their feet to try and deliver diabetes medication to people that were in remote places in Virginia. We've had situations where the health wagon is out there and they have somebody with a laceration, and they say, I don't have the sutures I need. I can't treat this person. But if I had this technology, I could do it. So we started on this process, and our first step was to conduct a delivery of medication in WISE. And there were a lot of people that said this isn't really research. And we said, you know what? We learned so much by actually doing it rather than simulating doing it. The things that we had to think about, the things like chain of custody, which is stuff that people that fly airplanes don't really think about. Things like temperature controls, things that people that fly airplanes don't think about. So we found that the process of actually delivering the medication was invaluable to us. Our next step is in this is we have this group together, and we're talking about how we put a partnership together to respond to real world scenarios, both in the United States and overseas. And in the process, there's a lot of research and development that we're going to do that the MAAP and we hope Virginia Tech and other our partner universities will be very, very involved in. So that's kind of an overview of Virginia, and at the end, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
So thank you very much, John. And part of the thing of being an FAA selected test site is what we'll be able to do with things like the News Coalition is take what we're seeing and do a cognitive review with the FAA to inform the safety operational standards so that we can move the ball along for, again, that more commercial use. That as well with the Wisely operation. So that's that partnership with the FAA. And much like Pathfinders, we already have an immediate path with the FAA to work some of these things. So the next person that's going to speak is Matt Scassero from Maryland, and he's going to give us...
Before I get into our update for the state of Maryland, I do need to recognize both Rose and John. Their leadership and Virginia Tech's leadership in this has positioned not only our partner universities, but also the test sites to be where we are today. Issues that need to be solved so that all of us can benefit, not just the test sites, not just the partner universities, but the entire industry. So thank you very much for that leadership. Like Rose said, it's been an incredible first year. Lessons learned, things we've set out on. Our mission really is all-encompassing in many ways. It's integration research, it's commercial application, civil application research, it's public education, and it's also the fact that we're universities, it's about higher education as well. So some of the updates I'm going to touch on will hit each one of those areas. Starting from our very first flight, we knew we wanted to do something that was hard. Small UAS is where a lot of the industry is looking at right now. It is easier than large UAS, small UAS being anything below 55. So a lot of people are looking at that's where the cost point is for most of the UAS industry. From the very get-go, though, most of us knew that we needed to work large UAS as well. So our very first flight, we flew a large UAS. It's the upper right-hand corner there. It was a 20-foot wingspan, 120-pound vehicle on our very first flight. And these are the lessons we keep relearning. Don't do it in front of a crowd, and don't do anything too hard. We broke both those things on the first flight, but we kept the airplane in one piece. We had 150 of our closest friends out for the first flight to witness it, and one of the things we set for ourselves was we were going to do integration research right off the bat. We had a transponder on the aircraft, which most UAS do not currently fly with. We had a transponder on it, and we coordinated with the local Navy flight tracking facility to see when they could see us after launch. And in fact, they could see us very shortly after launch, even though we were some 60 miles away as the crow flies, or as the UAS flies. So right off the bat, we were doing hard stuff. So that was kind of the integration focus. As far as the commercial civil applications, it's literally all over the map. Everything from infrastructure inspection, agriculture, aquaculture, public safety, all the things that you've been hearing about in the press, universities. Some of the specific things that I have on the slide here, agriculture, and with our three states, the way they're positioned in the littoral area of our country, we do a lot of aquaculture, whether it's farming, fishery survey, Aquaculture is very near and dear to our local industry and our local economies as well. Acoustic sensing. Each vehicle of these types has an acoustic signature that you can use to track the vehicles, classify the vehicles, all different ways to use that information. So one of our research projects was, what is the acoustic signature of these vehicles, of these different subs? Characterization. The batteries. Most of these vehicles, especially the smalls, are battery powered. Some of the larger ones, you get into the fuel engines of different fuel types. But those characterizations, you'll hear the industry: watch your vehicle flew over the horizon because you've lost control of it, or the battery's died someplace where you didn't expect it to die. So one of the things we want to do is figure out what is the actual life of these, especially when it's the payload, varied weather, wind conditions, things like that. So that was one of the things we did. Where the industry is putting a lot of, not all is ground-based truth as we'd like to see it, all of us. So one of the things we want to do is make sure that people are actually doing the research into the all gain from that, but also allows the FAA then to go write regulations based on known quantitation. So our very first summer of operations, we had 5 interns with us who did 5 different projects. Probably the most interesting one was the summer intern that swam out in the middle of a bay off our coastline, about 200 yards. We knew he was doing it. He had a life preserver on, and then had a drone go out and try to find him using automated software, and it worked. So we had a great summer with those folks here, advisor. So they did their brief out. It was very beneficial. We look forward to having more interns in the future and having a better summer too. Public outreach. We go through a significant amount of public meetings, whether they're local, small-scale meetings, all the way up to things like the State of Maryland Agriculture Day over on the eastern shore of Maryland, where we had hundreds of people out seeing do for agriculture in the state of Maryland. So we do a lot of public outreach. One of our big goals there, besides getting ourselves out there and making people know what we're doing, is educating them on the capabilities, but also the limitations. And one of the things we'll probably get into a little later is the information is out there. It's up to make sure the ground truth, data, and information is out there that people can then live by. Another part of our outreach, you hear a lot in the press about the limitations on UAS. The legislation is working with our partners again. Senate, we got the 3rd pro-UAS bill in the United States passed this session in Maryland. So it's a bill that not only supports UAS, it actually tells our Department of Business and Economic Development, go study UAS in industry, take off, pardon the pun. It also limits the ability of other organizations, especially below the state level, to limit space. They control that. The state of Maryland and our state is the only ones that can limit UAS by regulation. So it was a very good bill. We were real happy to get that one passed. And then for the economic development, it is, at some level, comes down to jobs, showing that the state is putting their money where their mouth is. We have a new facility actually being built right now. The picture at the bottom center there was taken just a few days ago. A software integration lab at St. Ports. It should start there. Crawl, 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 walk, run. But eventually you have to be able to integrate with manned aircraft. At our airport, we have a COA that's about to be, we got a call, the COA that's about to be approved to fly at St. Mary's County Airport. We have procedures already been to allow us to fly unmanned and manned aircraft at the airport at the same time. So it's very exciting for us. With that new facility we'll be in a couple months, we're really looking forward to a bright future working with our partners in the FAA on that.
Things. We are flying at airports and we are flying with manned aviation. And when we fly at an airport to get a COA, we work with the airport authority to get a letter of authorization so that they understand how we operate a lot with that. And in some of the research in New Jersey, you'll hear a little bit more about that. The other thing that we are doing is we are working with folks like NASA as well. Everybody thinks the small rule is going to be the end of awareness to the operators when there's more than one in the airspace at the same time. So as the industry grows, there's going to be multiple users in the same place and at the same time. And NASA's doing research in conjunction with the FAA to take a look at getting that situational awareness through a UAS traffic management program that they've set up. So we're also going to be the issue of certification and training that will arise for people to actually learn how to fly it. So there's lots of exciting things. Joe Shears from New Jersey, and he's going to talk a little bit about the research they have going in New Jersey.
And we are doing many of the things that Rose just mentioned. In New Jersey, we have the perfect aviation infrastructure, airports, airside UAS, and the NAS. We conducted our first flights a few months ago. What we did is exactly what Rose said. We took an active airport. We put in an authorization for about 280 square miles of airspace up to 7. Might sound so what? But the reality is above us were the approach and departures for JFK, LaGuardia, Newark, Philadelphia, Landy Airspace. It was an awesome operation. At one point we were flying, we were actually at about 2,800 feet. We had 2 Coast Guard helicopters come down below us and do a touch and go. We had no idea they were coming. But they knew we were there because we had filed the appropriate notifications. Right behind those 2 was a twin-engine private jet, and behind them were 2 general aviation aircraft. So that day we stood there just looking at all these aircraft in the air, not even being fazed by the fact that we had 175. So our aircraft, just a brief explanation, was an RS-20. It's basically 125 pounds empty. We had it at about 165 pounds at launch. It uses 2.5 gallons of gas. It can run for 16 hours at 60 knots. We could go on 2.5 gallons of gas. Like Matt's operations, we wanted to fly in the National Airspace System. We had a transponder on City Tower. We talked to the tower wanted to, when I went to see the tower, I expected them just to get a bunch of, no, you can't do that. And instead, they welcomed our flights. They said, you know, before you launch, please call me. I'll give you a transponder code so I know who you are when I look at my scope. And so that operation went very, very well. Our host airport was Cape May Airport, which we have many other operations scheduled at Cape May. Next week, we're actually flying the same aircraft. We've got several. The slide here, these are pictures from our last operation. So if you look, before I started this, I basically made him go to ground school and get a Class 2 medical so he could be an observer. And while he was there, he was asked to put on a bicycle helmet with a GoPro camera so that we could do research on whether the current rules for a ground observer were actually effective. Because his role at the operation is to observe the airspace, not the aircraft. But the tendency is to want to watch the aircraft. So we had him do that, and he's actually pretty good. The upper left is a picture of our aircraft. It's a catapult launch. We launched it from a decommissioned runway without any problems. The picture below that, this was in our flight planning. What we did is observers have to be 1 mile from the airport so that you can't really see it, but there's a 1 mile red circle around the center of the airport. The green area was the area where we planned on flying. The research mission was to do a 3D high-resolution model of the airport. The reason we want to do it is because there's a lot of public entities that are interested in using this technology for different applications, at least twice a year. And their beach erosion study used to consist of having a general aviation pilot with a camera. Whenever he hit a certain lat long, he would hit the button and would take a picture. He would take 53 pictures from Cape May to Sandy Hook, which is basically all the way up the New Jersey coast. And then they would do it in the spring and the fall, and then they would just compare the pictures. 3D computer model, 16 feet. Now all of a sudden they can do a real beach erosion study. They can really understand what's going on. So we wanted to practice that while we were there. The integration of unmanned aircraft telemetry. Rose mentioned situational awareness. I have an industry partner that actually developed that situational awareness display on the bottom left for the Defense Department. What we actually had on that screen was all active FAA traffic. We had NOAA weather, and we actually had the telemetry from the aircraft downlinked into that system so it was displayed. So we pretty much knew what was going on. The intent there is not to control traffic. Situational awareness is to understand, what we're up against in case we have to pretty much get out. Products is the lower right. That is a left where you see the number 10. Right to the right of that, we actually capture and go on the runway while we're above it. Another exercise we did, which is not included in the pictures, is we had 2 different industry-built based radar or a radio-based radar in order to maintain situational awareness of a small aircraft on an airport surface. Part of the idea is we are looking independently at UAS operations on active airports. Part of what we're looking at is whether we should have separate airports, or in the case of Atlantic City, an area on Atlantic City where UAS operations would take place separate. The reason we decided to do this is because I was at a briefing at Atlantic City Airport. The first slide the airport manager put up was, on top of it, he superimposed the landmass of Atlantic City. So we said, oh, wait a minute, we got a lot of space over here. We could try to do something. We've had informal discussions with the FAA Research Center, the William J. Hughes Technical Center, about a cooperative research and development agreement to do those type of operations. And we're still discussing from our universities. Rutgers University during this flight had 4 projects loaded on the aircraft. Princeton University had a methane sensor on the aircraft. And 2 industry partners. One had a miniaturized ADS-B transponder that we could put on the aircraft, would give us the ability to not only report our position, but to get position reports from other aircraft. And so we've done a lot. It took us a little bit longer to get moving in New Jersey. The airspace is more complicated. Typically, an authorization would go through in about 2 months. Ours took almost 4, but we understood that. We were asking for a lot. And the FAA was very supportive in giving us that and in working with us to make sure we did everything safely. In the future, we're going to continue to do that. Again, we're focused on the national airspace side of UAS integration in NAS. My team basically has been, so we're all into the air traffic side of it, and ensuring that when a controller sits down, he knows where that unmanned aircraft is on his scope. So our focus has always been from the pilot and control to the air traffic controller and everything in the middle. We have a very strong team. Our academic are providing some really great research capabilities. The Stockton Aviation Research Park, which I'm also the executive director of in my day job, has sites to create an environment where we can do some really hardcore research in order to facilitate unmanned aircraft into NAS.
Thank you, Joe. So as you can see, we do research not only with university assets, but we're really interested in the industry side as well. And many of these flights took place with industry partners and industry companies that came to us and said they had things they need to do. So pairing them together to be able to take that information, gather that information to inform a safety case and to move it along. We also believe that being here in the Mid-Atlantic is air traffic and aviation and how it works together. Many of us have worked in the field not only with unmanned aircraft but with manned aviation for a number of years. And true integration isn't going to happen in isolation. It's going to happen in the heart of what's happening. And we feel that here at the Mid-Atlantic Aviation Partnership, we're right in the middle of all of that. And in the middle of Carmen's region with New York and LaGuardia and Boston. We have Philadelphia. We have a lot going on in regards to that. So what are we flying? So as mentioned, we've had, this is as of July 38 actual flights. Those flights can be very short flights or longer flights, and right now an accumulated 161 hours. It has been different types of aircraft. We do all different sizes and types of aircraft. A lot of these flights are rather smalls, but we've done the larger aircraft, and we're actually in the process of working with So I'm going to move now to the privacy policy. So I know a lot of folks are concerned about privacy and privacy rules. So we do have a privacy policy. We do follow manned aviation privacy rules. We understand that technology has moved along in the privacy arena, and we feel that privacy is not a UAS issue alone. It's a technology issue. And if indeed those laws, the federal laws and state laws, need to be updated, they should be updated. Yes. So we do have a privacy policy. I'm not going to cover the whole policy, but just the highlights of that policy. And the UAS test site operated by Virginia Tech Rutgers and the State University of New Jersey and the University of Maryland under the oversight of the Mid-Atlantic Aviation Responsible integration of UAS. Responsible integration is respect for privacy. The purpose of this policy is to provide guidance in the operation of the MAAP UAS test site to ensure that in the course of the research, development, test, and evaluation process, that the privacy of all individuals is respected. So the UAS platform data, which is things like the radar telemetry, ADS-B for that NAS integration piece, generally doesn't have much of a privacy aircraft that have a larger privacy concern. So the optics, infrared, LiDAR, and sensor data may be considered private, and our policy is focused on this type of data. Site operation will have as personal information of individuals in the general public where they have an expectation of privacy to include imagery, phone, electronic emissions that might contain personal information. Sensor data not associated with FAA UAS integration research, which I mentioned earlier, radar, ADS-B telemetry, will be destroyed after 14 days. In the event that the customer requires retention of the data beyond that point, the customer of the UAS test site will be required to certify that the data contains no personal information of anyone in the general public in which they have reasonable assumption of privacy. This personal information that has been inadvertently detected has been destroyed or obscured, or the permission of the persons in the question have been obtained to retain the personal data. And if you want to see the full policy, it is on our website, and you can pick it up there. But we do follow the federal data collection standards and laws, and the state as well. So we're very concerned about privacy as well as safety. Not only do all of us fly, in the airspace today, we also have privacy concerns. So we're in this together, and we really want to make sure that people understand that we're being good citizens with this. So with that in mind, we're going to move to questions and answers. If you're in the room and you have a question, then we have a microphone here that we will set up that you can come and ask questions. Once he gets the microphone set up.
Yes, this is the technical part of the operation. So it is interesting if anyone's been. A lot of people are pointing to this meeting already, and I'll see if I could dig some of those up. It is important if you come up here. Please speak in the microphone. And one of the questions that we already received would be, are these slides available? And I think you will be able to get all of these at the MAAP website, which is maap.ictas.vt.edu.
Or Google Mid-Atlantic Aviation
Or you
Partnership.
could do that. Or you could do that. Or you could remember all those letters I gave at the Institute of Critical Technology and Applied Science at Virginia Tech. And that is the reason for all that. And let's start, why don't we, with a Twitter question. And this one came from ATC Pilots SC. And it says, when will we see UAS pilot certification testing / certification and carding? And Rose, do you want to direct
Well,
that?
certainly we're doing research in that right now with a number of our customers, including the News Coalition. So we believe that's an important piece of people to use the technology. A number of years ago, the RC pilots, for example, they built their aircraft. They spent time and money building the aircraft. When they crashed the aircraft, it was really painful because they lost something that they worked on. Today, it's much easier. You get on to pop it in the air. So we feel that getting the aviation information that's important to be safe, not necessarily to be a full pilot, but what's important. And I'll turn that over to the FAA to add to that.
Well, as Rose mentioned, the outreach is important. The data is important as we collect the data, but the safe integration of the UAS into the national airspace system is the mandate. Safety is always the first. Ongoing test sites and the testing that we're doing right now to make sure that we get it right. She mentioned the modelers. I was one of them many years ago, where you took ownership of that. It took a while to learn how to fly that thing. So easy to do that now. But the manufacturers, we're working closely with the test sites, the manufacturers, the other centers, with the certification standards, and as the technology improves, how we get there to the next step, which is where we're going with the technology.
Thank you, Carmen. In addition to that, we certainly at our test site work closely with the standards bodies, with just ASTM, the F-38 for the smalls, and RTCA for the larger aircraft to give input to those standards activities. And as they get into their verification and validation steps, to be able to provide data to them as well, so that we can inform that safety case to make the minimal safe operational standards that are needed.
Hey there, Joel Roberson from thank you both to the FAA and to in getting approvals through the FAA to do the flights, and for Virginia Tech for setting up all the testing regimens. We're completed one phase, and as John said, we're about to developing safety protocols in advance for how we can do news gathering safely across the country in the future. But following up on something that Rose mentioned earlier about the work that's being done between FAA and the test site to coordinate and do some cognitive walkthroughs of the testing, could you, because it's unique where we can have both the test site and the FAA here in the same room, at the same table, could you talk a little bit about how you all are working together to develop research priorities, how the information, the data that you're developing is being shared back and forth, and then on the back end, how that research data, which is being developed through this test site and other test sites, will ultimately inform regulations that are developed and released in the future?
So go ahead, Bill, start.
Okay. So first of all, I guess probably break it into two. How part of the, I guess, what research do we share with them, and then I guess how do we use that research they issue back? So first of all, when we set up the test sites, there was no funding that came along with the test sites for us to be able to actually contract work to the test sites. So what we had done, we have a list of over 100 and some research priorities related to UAS that we shared with the test sites. All of the test sites, when they applied under the solicitation to compete, to be selected as a test site, put forth in their packet their research objectives and their goals towards research. So we provided what they had already had ongoing, or what they could support, or what industry brought to them. So it was kind of a menu that was laid out to them where they could find where they could be most efficient and most effective with the folks that come to them and the companies that come to them. As far as the sharing of the information, we have committed to regular interchange with all test sites. So we do what's called a technical interchange meeting. We do that once a quarter. We've got one next week,
Yes.
I believe.
In
And-
Alaska.
in Alaska. You know, the thing about the research that they share is, as Rose had mentioned, they got stood up in December of 2013. It takes a while for you know, the research to get developed and to hear the test sites share some of the stuff that they've been learning. Clearly, they have some responsibility to their customers, if you will, for get regular reports that are required through the authorizations that are given to them to give us operational data. So we'll collect that operational data and are collecting the operational data to try to look and see kind of what the safety lessons learned are, and you know, flight experiences and that kind of thing. So I don't know
In
what else you
addition,
wanna add.
you know, we're waiting to set up a meeting for cognitive review specifically for the News Coalition, and we had to have enough of the testing so that we could have a cognitive review on that very shortly, on when that will be. So
Right.
what we will do is present what the research was, what we found, and what we and the FAA believe are the next steps to push it forward. So again, one of the main issues with the News
Right.
Coalition is the complexity of the missions. They have very easy missions like flying a special interest where nobody's around, and then they have very helicopters, and many other things are happening at the same time. So we actually, like a Pathfinder, are able to take this data to the FAA, have the cognitive review, get feedback, and again, try to inform that safety case with the FAA.
Well, we have another Twitter question here, and this one is from at C43. That's SEA 43. MAAP has a new associate director to coordinate business development when opportunities arise. how are they allocated between the 3 states? And this also kind of dovetails with another question that we received, what our future business for the site might be. But
So again, we've taken an organic approach, as I'd mentioned, to developing where we fly. So our first interest is when somebody contacts us, we have a MAAP core level, which I'm the executive director, that goes across all 3 states. So when a customer comes to us, the first thing we do is see what they want to fly and where. So our first preference is to give it to the state that the person factors are, and then we determine as a team of the executive leadership team, which is the 3 associate directors and myself, on where that work should be done. What's the opportunities there? And that don't fit those criteria, we as the 4 of us decide where that should be flown next, so that we distribute the work across the test site. What was the second part of that question?
future business.
Okay, so fly what they need to fly. So in the smalls, even when the small rule comes out, there's going to be opportunities, we feel, to inform the safety case with the FAA to do beyond visual line of sights, higher altitude. There'll be a training and certification possibility and component there, so that we could help develop that and work with the FAA, but then also push that into industry, because there's going to be a big demand. We also see things on the small side with NASA in regards to trying to have that situational awareness for those smalls, so that operators in the same airspace 400-foot level. We also see a really important role is in the testing of things like sense and avoid, C2, also the operational integration of the higher altitudes and the greater airframes. So we see that the test site progressing as the industry and as the rules progress into providing services that actually take the ball, in cases, to serve industry, but also to inform the FAA and work with government to move that ball forward. And also operations, and to do the university research on sensors and make it easy for universities. You know, my experience is mainly industry, but coming to the university and their technology or their algorithms integration piece. As a test site, we're able to work with them and get sort of a double research objective. We get the aeronautical research to help inform and to push the balls for the industry research piece for their basic research. Anybody else have anything to say about that? Nope. Okay.
And from the audience, please feel free. But here's, we have more. We have more.
Sorry, I have a question.
Okay, just step up
can
there
you
then.
come up?
Sure.
I hate to make people do that, but
Fine.
it's easiest.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Spear with the National Association of Realtors, who are or are not participating in the NTA. Very open process, and they really do want to hear from people on all sides of the issue. So I know that the privacy issue, you're viewing it as a technological issue, but maybe just hear a little
There's a lot of privacy groups out there, and we haven't heard about that one. So there are many groups looking at it, and we are interested in interacting and collaborating with any groups that engage us where we can with our bandwidth. Certainly the realtors are very interested, but there are a whole lot of others out there that have groups that are working on that. So it's not that we've ignored that, it's moving so fast.
Oh, well, this is the National Telecommunications Information Administration Working Group.
It was in the press.
It was in the press.
A couple months ago. It was, like you said, it's the biggest limitation for us, I know, is bandwidth. It's been so busy the last 6 months to a year, just getting all the things needed to get done to get things airborne. One of the things I know we've done is we've talked to our School of Public Policy and tried to get them engaged on UAS issues, privacy issues, technology issues, things like that. A lot of it they were already paying attention to on this particular issue. So that is one group that might take on a little bit more of that role, and then reach out to those of us that are actually busy in the industry and the operations to see what it is we're seeing, what it is we're trying to do, blend that with the public policy aspects to make sure it's fair and balanced for everybody.
And I believe that a lot of folks don't realize that the test sites are essentially small startups within universities or within organizations. So we have government funding from our states to stand up the test sites, but we are very small teams that are, and we're able to provide only so much support in many areas at the moment. But we certainly are interested in a review process and getting that done. So our funding came initially in our state from the governors, our customers. So although we're a small company in a big university.
Hi, My name is Adam Stahl. I am a co-owner of a small software company developing software for UAS operations in the national airspace. We are not operating UAVs or creating UAVs, but we interface with the software or with the telemetry that UAVs are providing, as well as other FAA telemetry feeds and radar feeds and stuff like that. What is the process for a small software company to get involved?
So John?
So the answer is you say we'd have to have a discussion about what exactly you want to do.
Okay.
But we have the ability to get a hold of a number of different vehicles of different types, and to allow in a manner that's appropriate, okay. and then to fly. And we also have some burgeoning modeling and simulation capability that may be of interest too. So I would suggest that you talk to one or all of us afterwards, and we'll be happy to start working with you.
Great. Thank you.
In addition, we're very conscientious about cost. A number of us have been involved in small business or have owned small businesses, so we want to make our costs as reasonable as possible to be able to let small companies like yours interface with us. But the other thing that we're looking to do is to take technology like that when we have other opportunities to get, again, more research off.
To that is, the better defined your requirements or your objectives are, the better it is for us to be able to put together that pickup team. So if your particular software is based on ADS-B, this size vehicle, and this kind of airspace-based vehicles, people, partners, bring together that pickup team to actually do the research project. So the better specificity there is, the better for everybody.
And we also have the folks that can help you better define it too,
Yeah.
if you're not sure.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, John, I think you're up with our Twitter folks.
Wait for some more. This one I'm not quite, you're the UAS people, so maybe you'll understand this one. This is from @ATC Pilot SC again, and it just says UAS airworthiness for COT question mark.
Commercial off the shelf.
Oh, okay. What's
Commercial off the shelf.
commercial
Stuff
off
you
the
buy
shelf systems by specific companies deemed airworthy?
Okay.
In regards, we'll let them start.
So this is probably a good opportunity to introduce the topic of the small UAS proposed rule that was out in February of last year. So I'll kind of answer the question in the context of the proposal for the small UAS rule. Currently, the small UAS rule proposal does not contain any airworthiness standards. So we are evaluating comments on that, and we'll look forward to move towards the final rule once we get the comments evaluated, and we call it NPRM, Notice of Proposed Rulemaking. But the NPRM for the small UAS, part of the reason that we didn't require certification is because we have set a construct in the proposal where these aircraft will fly where they're not a danger to people or property on the ground. Therefore, we could relieve a lot of the requirements for certification. As if anybody knows that's had to get an aircraft certified, it's time consuming. And if that certification was required, then it would add additional cost to anybody that would want to have an airworthy certified small UAS, if you will.
So in addition, NAS will follow a path. We're not sure on sizes yet of manned aviation and be able to have what you're looking for in a restricted type certification. And it may not be something that necessarily comes from the requirement on the smalls from the FAA, but possibly from other areas like insurance that are questioning how much flight time is on that aircraft and how much pilot time. So, and have certifications as they're needed come up, but not to make it so onerous that the industry isn't able to flourish.
Right. And I guess I would add one more thing. If the question is when will we see it, we've already type certified some civil UAS for operations up in Alaska. So we have issued, I think, 2 different types of airframes of restricted category type certification.
Okay, Mark?
Hi, Mark Aiken with the Association for Unmanned Vehicle Systems International. I have 2 questions. Just kind of piggybacking on an earlier question here, in order to kind of give industry better indication as to perhaps, what research needs the MAAP coalition has based on FAA guidance. Is there something in terms of like an overarching comprehensive research plan that outlines specifically where MAAP fits into the overall UAS integration efforts, so then that way industry knows potentially what solutions to bring forward? Aware that NASA, I believe, is starting to work with. Wondering if you can kind of talk a little bit about the work that's going to be going on throughout the 6 test sites in order to further NASA's efforts on UTM. Thank you.
Okay, so let's start with the last question first. The UTM question, NASA did put out 3 task orders, one being indefinite deliverable, indefinite quantity IDIQ contract, which is open-ended to be able to get money to the test sites and work on research. They also had a task for the UTM piece so that we can actually start integrating awareness. And we have gotten the initial letter that said we have been awarded the IDIQ and the UTM piece. In addition, they had a task order 0 for UAS and the NAS, and that piece, SC-228, detect and avoid work that's being done. NASA at this time has decided to cancel that portion of it because they need to further define it. But we see that NASA is also working with the FAA, and we want to be able to use our test sites and our test site as the others to in place. As far as the research objectives, we did, as Bill said, had specific research objectives, but the FAA has opened that up for us to fill the research objectives that they're going for. So they did give us 151 cases. We're working more closely with them to see where they dovetail. And for each flight, we do provide research that we're doing and an explanation of it. So we're able to dovetail that way. Anybody else have something to say there?
Yeah, you know, I view us as a driver of the research. So we're really looking to you know, and clearly we have a broad range of capabilities. So my answer is, you know, if you have a problem, bring it to us. We'll figure it out for you. And I think that's generally speaking across the 3 states, we can do just about anything. But we feel like there are areas that clearly broadly, how do we do this sense and avoid thing? How do we go beyond visual line of sight? How do we go higher? How do we go larger? How do we fly over people safely? And those create a series of smaller problems, smaller research questions that we think we can, you know, again, we can add a lot of things to. And frankly, capabilities. And throw all the research universities that we have in here and our partners in there, we can address a broad range of problems.
We want to move to do that in areas that haven't been breached yet or haven't been looked closely to collaborate with other research going on.
Like John said too, one of the other things that we do as institutions to our research labs. So I reach up to College Park in Virginia Tech, Rutgers, New Jersey Institute of Technology. They reach up to their home camp out where are our strengths and where are our needs for that research, and of that research, what needs to get airborne, what's able to get airborne. Them fulfill their goals as well. And I see my associate VP for research back there. Our intern projects were one example of that. I know Virginia Tech Airworthiness Center, the airworthiness work that we do at the engineering school is all stuff that we already do, already work on, already have strength in. Now we're trying to dovetail that with the ability to get it airborne.
In addition, we do research that's not only flight research. We have a research grant with Northrop Grumman and some others in regards to doing research that's not initially flight worthy or that has flights attached to it, but we're doing safety cases and hazard analysis to be able to inform that case and to look at the hazard and research that we do. It's aviation research and aeronautical research broadly, and we can do that through a number of different ways, through the universities, with partners, and so we're very excited.
Hi, I'm Ian Duncan with the Pretty Obsessed with Safety, but there seems to be loads of people who are flying these things who are not, and I just wonder, how does your research inform, or what can you do about people who don't know what the rules are, don't care what the rules are, and, you know, we're not going to have rules for a long time. What do you do now to stop people having a crash, basically?
Well, we certainly, I'll turn it over to you here in a second, we certainly get a lot of calls from folks saying, you know, we have this UAS and we're flying it, what do we do? And so what we're able to do in some cases, depending on who they are, is to step them through and help them design a 333 for them to take forward. We also point them to the FAA website, Know Before You Fly, and we provide information to them. To be honest with you, some people get mad at us when we bring the truth to them. They get upset with the fact that, we're telling them what they're doing is illegal. It is illegal, and that's that they have to decide what they want to do and what they don't want to do. But we certainly are here to inform and to help them to come into a safe position with that. And some of that's through training, some of that's through helping them with 333s. I'll turn that over to you, Carmen.
So, as you mentioned, safety is our first priority. As the technology improves and the number of these systems are available at a lower cost, our responsibility is outreach, education, and if necessary, education again, and then enforcement. So as we move along with this in the rulemaking process and working with the test sites and the centers of excellence and some of the other capabilities that are evolving and the details with that, we go back and redouble our efforts with the education piece. Working with the manufacturers, they're including Know Before You Fly literature within these things, to improving. We're spending a lot of time with the local law enforcement officials and the air traffic control towers and the air traffic control facilities, municipalities, New York City, Baltimore, Philadelphia, those major, they're very attractive places to take one of these things up and take some pictures if you like, but you have to know what's legal and how to do it, whatever. We're bridging from the modeling community of old that took ownership of this to something where the technology is moving so fast that the education has to dovetail and be as quickly integrated into the system as well.
And part of our mission is to certainly inform folks. So that's why, we accept all those phone calls and try to help people understand and risk factors. Another thing that people don't think about is the liability risk. But there's a liability if something does happen. And if they are flying without authorization, the liability becomes theirs personally. Or their companies, depending on who they're flying for. So we're trying to inform, and we're also trying to help the FAA get the rules in place as soon as possible, because we know that there's a lot going on out there. And being an entrepreneur, I understand all so that we don't have an industry shutdown if bad things start to happen. So we do take a lot of calls like that. John?
I think one of the biggest problems is that there are so many people. I don't think people are out there saying, I want to cause a major aviation disaster. I think there are people that just don't understand what the risk is, and they don't understand that one of these small in it, you're gonna end up with are basically an upside down brush hog. So they can really hurt somebody. But those things flying in the wrong place at the wrong time can take down a general aviation aircraft and can be ingested into an engine that can be really, really bad. And I think people just don't understand. And so the education piece is so critical. So if I would ask you to put one thing in your story, is include that website, Know Before You Fly, because it really is a good outline of.
You did say that out loud. So we want people to be able to fly, but we want them to understand. I'm a student pilot, and I certainly don't want to see any of them in my windscreen as I'm trying to fly. As we're hearing about airport incursions all the time, I think you probably get many, many calls, Carmine, of people flying them where they shouldn't. So, Mark?
Thanks, Rose. Mark Sullivan, USI. In view of these increasing incidents, do you foresee government, therefore FAA, providing more resources to tackle this growing problem as the retail market grows prior to the commercialization being in place?
Okay. So it's important to us that the public understands that to fly these things where they're causing a hazard to the airspace is illegal, and it does cause a safety concern on our part. We currently have many efforts going on with increased reach, as Carmen has mentioned, to public law enforcement, local municipalities. We've done the No Drone Zone campaign with Super Bowl. the last Super Bowl. We've also instituted that campaign within the restricted airspace, 15 miles within DCA Airport. The intent is that that package can be exportable to other venues that maybe would have temporary flight restrictions, such as firefighting. It's been very important. We've worked with the Forest Service and work towards the no drone zone type of campaign. And obviously, the same concept here in DC wouldn't work somewhere else if the same airspace restrictions weren't in the Fly app. So we're definitely interested in educating. As John mentioned, education is a big thing that we feel can solve a lot of the safety concerns. So this Before You Fly app that we've been working on should be out by the end of the summer. Will better inform, and it'll be in the beta version, a test version, better inform modelers on where they can fly and what the hazards are associated. Just giving them information that's not readily available to the person that purchase these models off of the internet or the local store. So we'll continue to do that outreach and hope that the education and the word gets out. So as far as the overall resources, that's a congressional authorization for the number of resources we have, and I can't talk to that at this point.
So as Bill has mentioned too, that we feel as test sites that information and that public outreach is important. So we will continue to do that as well and answer the many questions that we get. We have a frequently asked question section on our webpage. So as we get multiples, we try to capture some of that information so that people can look at that website too. And that kind of is a culmination that we're building on those types of emails and or aviation questions. Mm-hmm.
Scott Green at C43, and another one from at LAA007. Both similar app. If so, how and under what circumstances? And then the other part of that question is, suppose is wanting to do BLOS operations, can they FAA? Who do they contact?
Okay, so we do have on our website contact information, and we are interested in talking to other universities, and also we certainly have concentrated our effort. Governors have brought the resources to do that. But with our nationwide COA and other things that are going on right now, we are certainly willing to entertain research with companies and also other university partners. We actually have put together and are on the final touches of putting together a special university research package to make it affordable and easily accessible for universities, and the finalization of that is coming out shortly. We also have a MAAP membership that will be announced very shortly as well to tie into the MAAP research that's going on. We are doing some beyond visual line of sight work. We do believe that's certainly the next frontier coming in regard. We're already doing that. So please contact us through the webpage or through the phone numbers there, and we can discuss that with you. Thank you for the question. Keep them coming.
Yeah, and another one that is, what has to happen before UAS are routinely flying?
So we will give.
Pass it up to Bill. Well, I think what has to happen is what's happening right now, is the development of the technical specifications, the safe integration into the national airspace system, the test sites, all the partnerships, and I'd like to just to shout out again to MAAP for the work they're doing with the industry, local municipalities, the FAA, flight standards, certifications, and whatever to bring this through in this incremental process. So some of the details we've talked about here today, on where we have gone and where we're about to go. There's a lot to do in the future as far as based on the size, the capabilities, the mission of the UAS in the National Airspace System. So that's where we need to go, and that's exactly what we're doing now.
And I'm going to know you've worked in the in through other jobs that you have. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, right now, we're in what's called an accommodation phase. The FAA is accommodating the access of the airspace to small unmanned aircraft less than 55 pounds. Basically, accommodation is an airworthiness waiver because those are the standards that an unmanned aircraft cannot meet. The number one being that there's a certified pilot in the cockpit. So a public entity can gain access, an airworthiness waiver through a certificate of waiver and authorization. A private entity can get a small U.S. authorization through what's called the Section 333 to the FAA authorization bill. Right? The large private industry doesn't have any access except to come to a test site. But what's got to happen is when the rule comes out for the smalls, that's basically going to be to basically say if you operate within these parameters, your aircraft doesn't have to be deemed airworthy because of the impact. For the larges, my opinion is that through a lot of research with aircraft larger than 55 pounds, we will have to develop not just operational but airworthiness requirements for those aircraft.
So there's still a lot of work to be done in regards to the fact that it'll give use in a limited area, but it will open up the market, and we're very excited about that. But that was also spun off of SC203's work with RTCA, recognizing that would be the market first, but it's not the end all. It's the beginning of access. It's the beginning from where the 333s are today, with, again, the accommodation being with very certain rules. And the test sites are here to work with the FAA. And as a public entity, we get a COA, but we also have enhanced safety and risk management and data interaction with the FAA. And so we're able to actually take that beyond what a normal public entity can do and push the civil use and safety case.
I think we're done from Twitter.
So do we have, please, if you have any further questions, please go ahead and send them in as a last minute question. If anybody in the room has a question, then please go forward. Oh, you just...
At W. Swinney, why are hobbyists allowed greater flexibility than the test sites in conducting flight ops? 400 feet versus 200 feet. I don't know if that's a legitimate question or not.
Bill?
Sure.
That one's yours.
Sure. So Congress defines what in Section Reform and Modernization Act in 2000 need to fly under, and they need to fly under the supervision of safety guidelines of a community-based organization. And that's where they get their safety guidelines. And the traditional very good safety record, their standards have been proven, and a high confidence level that will not be a hazard to the national airspace system. So that's what we have in Section 336, and that's what we follow.
And in addition, the AMA, which is the Modeling Association in the U.S., is the one that's provided a lot of that guideline. They work directly with people. I think what's happened, though, is a lot of hobbyists don't do that. Right. And so why they have further access is because they're with each other. We're actually trying to integrate right in with the manned aviation as well, and also looking to do that next commercial step with multiple aircraft in the air, beyond visual line of sight, night operations, higher weights, higher altitudes. So that's the reason that the modelers, through the congressional language, were permitted, because we want also, as that education piece, is we want our sons and daughters to continue. And if we shut down that level of access, then we essentially are going to lose a whole generation of people for the aviation industry. And we want the U.S. to be leaders in aviation. And to do that, we have to start with the kids as well, to get them excited about flying things and doing things. Anything, much like the 2 o'clock call at the local pub, this is our last call in regards to questions and answers, outreach here. Certainly, you can go to our website. If you have further questions, please follow us on Twitter and on Facebook and on LinkedIn. And we look forward to furthering on what the good uses are, working with the industry to move the ball and working with the governments so that we don't duplicate efforts and we get there more quickly. So thank you very much, everyone who's been on the live stream and everyone that has attended today. Have a great day. Thank you.